Okay, we left off with the perfect defense. Just to make sure we're clear on this, the perfect defense, again, is not an excuse, but it says you were elsewhere. You were not in the area of the alleged crime. Therefore, because the defendant was not there, he or she could not be charged with the crime. And the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, not the defendant, who has to prove he was elsewhere. But if you have an alibi, you're basically saying you were elsewhere. So, most of you, except for Wara, have an alibi for an incident that could have happened at the Career Center on Thursday. Okay, now let's look at the burden of proof. The burden of proof, as again I said, is from the people. The people have the burden of proof. Who represents the people? That would be the prosecutor. The prosecutor, also known as the district attorney, represents the people. The people, when we speak about it in court, are our society, our community. Okay? The burden of proof has to be beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal trial. Again, different than in the preponderance of the evidence of a civil trial. And not only does the guilt have to be associated with the final outcome, but each and every element or part of the crime must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And what is reasonable doubt? Doubt based on reason and common sense and interpretations of the jury and or judge. Because trials can be, you are entitled to a jury trial every time you face criminal proceedings where you in fact obviously will have a sanction of some sentencing possibility to be incarcerated. If you're facing that, then you are entitled to a jury by your peers. However, some people choose to have a jury by the judge. And again, as a reminder from last chapter or last unit, a judge listening to all of the evidence will make the determination of guilt or not guilty. And that kind of trial is known as a bench trial. We have a jury trial, a trial of a member of your peers, where in misdemeanor cases 6 people determine your fate, and in felonies 12 people determine your fate. Although you will count 7 at a misdemeanor trial because we have 1 alternate, and typically you may see 14 on a felony jury trial because again we have 2 alternates. The alternates do not know they're alternates until the very end when they are dismissed. So everyone goes into it believing they are the ones going to make the determination as to a finding of guilt or not guilty. Okay, the final thing I want to talk about is the investigation itself. So we now know that there's a crime, but before you get to court, someone needs to investigate it. When we're doing that investigation, we need to look at a couple of options to help prepare our case. We need to look at a motive. You probably have all watched TV where you've seen what is the motive. The motive is the reason for the crime. It is not always determined. It often makes no sense. And sometimes it is very explainable. But it assists in your court proceedings so that you can suggest when someone has a motive, they also may have had the mens rea in order to commit the crime. So the investigation, a good investigation, will always contribute to the final outcome in court. Okay, another part that you want to look at when you're investigating the crime and preparing for your case before entering into court and before you make your arrest is the modus operandi. The modus operandi, another fancy word, Latin for method of operation. We've heard on TV, what's his MO? Well, the MO stands for modus operandi, or method of operation. The suspect always comes in on Sundays through an open rear window of the home. That would be the method of operation. So the way the suspect commits the crime. Daytime B&E. The suspect is known to kick in the front door and usually works between the hours of noon and 4 p.m. So again, those would be the MO, or the method of operation, and that helps determine, again, the charges. The prosecutor will review all the elements, and the prosecutor is the one who will determine ultimately what someone will be charged with. Then the subject will go into court where he will be formally charged in front of a judge, and that's at his arraignment, which we will speak of when we talk about our court proceedings. So it is critical that officers write a thorough report so in order to record all the elements of your title. Whatever you choose to title your report, the body of your report should reflect the body of the crime. Again, closing out as the corpus delicti. Okay, well, I hope you had a nice weekend and enjoyed the lecture. See ya on Monday with homework done. Now that you are done with this lecture, make sure you do the questions that go along with this lecture. Good night. Oh, I got to turn you off.